As a country, if we don't fight this vice of corruption seriously and with honest opinion without any bias, things will not be good for us.
UBC Radio Ground Zero, right here on UBC Radio.
UBC, ensure that the information you give out is factual but also objective, balanced, and complies with the legal and policy requirements for the media.
Ground Zero program is always live, loud and clear, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio, Mutebo FM, West Nile FM, and Magic 100 FM, and live stream on YouTube. You can also listen to the repeated broadcast of UBC Ground Zero every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda. Don't miss UBC Radio Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We host credible and relevant guests to discuss pertinent issues of national importance aimed at addressing people's concerns.
As a country, if we don't fight this vice of corruption seriously and with honest opinion without any bias, things will not be good for us.
UBC Radio Ground Zero, right here on UBC Radio.
UBC, ensure that the information you give out is factual but also objective, balanced, and complies with the legal and policy requirements for the media.
Ground Zero program is always live, loud and clear, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio, Mutebo FM, West Nile FM, and Magic 100 FM, and live stream on YouTube. You can also listen to the repeated broadcast of UBC Ground Zero every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda. Don't miss UBC Radio Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We host credible and relevant guests to discuss pertinent issues of national importance aimed at addressing people's concerns.
As a country, if we don't fight this vice of corruption seriously and with honest opinion without any bias, things will not be good for us.
UBC Radio Ground Zero, right here on UBC Radio.
UBC, ensure that the information you give out is factual but also objective, balanced, and complies with the legal and policy requirements for the media.
Ground Zero program is always live, loud and clear, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio, Mutebo FM, West Nile FM, and Magic 100 FM, and live stream on YouTube. You can also listen to the repeated broadcast of UBC Ground Zero every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda. Don't miss UBC Radio Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We host credible and relevant guests to discuss pertinent issues of national importance aimed at addressing people's concerns. UBC Radio Ground Zero, right here on UBC Radio.
Zero, we're broadcasting live on 98 FM UBC Radio. We're also live and clear on 4 radio stations covering entire Uganda. We're covering border to border, city to city. I must welcome our people from all sides of this country. I want to thank all the members of UBC Ground Zero and you who has been a part of UBC programs from morning up to this time that we join you with another interest. Nakapilipili, Kumi, Kapchorwa, Soroti, Apak, Gulu, Ajman, Moyo, Yumbe, Alua, Nebi, and all the other parts that I've not mentioned. I know you're tuning in and we love you so very much. And thank you from Nagulu, Fravia from Nagulu, Martin from Yenga, Joseph from Boyogerere, Catherine from Soloti, Joseph from Bale, and many others from West Nile, Arua, and many other parts of this country. Ampaire Amonotega is my name, and today we're discussing the fate of Uganda, we're discussing the history, we're discussing the present, and we're also going to look at the future of this country and the direction that we're taking as a country. We're going to look at many things that concern every person, that concern every parent, that concern every student. We're going to talk about education of this country. We're going to talk about things that concern the education system in Uganda, and it's a very big privilege and honor that have been joined by a person that is well known for not only promoting the education, the good education is well known for not only promoting the education, the good education system in this country, also has put in all his resolutions that have been passed and approved by cabinet and the government of Republic of Uganda concerning government aided schools. We're going to look into details of those resolutions, and we're going to see the effects, and we're going to see the implications. We're going to see how best they're going to be implemented, but also who is going to be concerned and who is going to be more affected. And we're going to look into the details of so much. There's so much that is taking place in our country, and as far as this sector is concerned, the government has resolved that, of course, you all know that we have the new curriculum that has been introduced in this country, I think this year. And also we have other resolutions that were made by the Minister of Education, Honorable Kaduju, and we're going to look into details of all the discussion. But before we go into the discussion, allow me to introduce our guest today, Mr. Fulbert Baguma, the head of National Teachers, Uganda National Teachers Association. You're most welcome, sir, to UBC Ground Zero.
Thank you very much. I'm Baguma Filbert, the General Secretary of Uganda National Teachers Union. And let me take this opportunity to thank the management of UBC, thank the presenter, and I want to send greetings to all those who listen to this program, Ground Zero. I have heard the presenter mentioning almost half of the country, and therefore I want to greet and wish you fruitful listening and sharing of ideas for the benefit of the Ugandan child and for the benefit of Ugandans. Education is the link to development, and therefore let us share ideas on how best we can have the best for our children in this country.
You're most welcome, sir, and we are so much glad that you have joined us, and we're going to educate. Indeed, as you say, education is the link to the development and the future of this country. We cannot leave out issues of national development, but we shall always try our best to teach the people of Uganda us and tell us what needs to be done in the education system, what governments should do to improve this system on this sector to make sure that the future of our children, the future of this country, is on the right direction. But if you cannot call on that line, you can send your messages on 0701 24 26 47. You can keep your messages coming through, and I will be reading them later on. Mr. Fulbert, you have been in this sector for a while or for some good time, and you must have heard that the government has set new resolutions, especially in secondary schools and primary schools. These resolutions, we are asking ourselves as parents, as concerned members of public, where they are going to take us. One, they are going to redistribute teachers. The government says that they are so much concentrated in urban areas, leaving the rural setting. Could this explain the reason as to why we have poor performance in rural settings? But before we go into that, someone would love to know what you do in the union and what is your responsibility. What have you done in your term of service? How far have you gone? How far have you promoted this sector of education? How far have you led the teachers?
First of all, like I told you, I am the General Secretary and therefore I am the Chief Executive of Uganda National Teachers Union. I do the planning, I do the monitoring and implementation of union. Business of the union is in my hands. I am the one to oversee what takes place in the union. And on top of that, I am the spokesperson of the union. We made the contribution to this country as an institution because our goals are two major ones. We have the first one as protecting the legitimate rights of the teachers as workers. Of course, as citizens, we have rights, and these rights are inherent. They are not given by the state, they are not given by any individual, but they are rights as enshrined in the 1995 Constitution as amended. The second goal is to promote the cause of education development in this country. And therefore, our is not to implement educational reforms as an institution, but our members are the ones to implement. And therefore, whether policies, regulations, or any initiative that comes in education, we have to look at its merits and demerits, and then we put it to government to know that where they are going, it is going to help the Ugandans or it is not going to help Ugandans. And advocacy is our key component in whatever we do, because we must advocate for the best policies, for the best initiatives that can support and help the Ugandan child to benefit from education of this country.
Interesting. And I'm glad that you are really doing that perfectly. And I believe the teachers are so much proud to have you as their leader, but also as their spokesperson. Going direct into the resolutions by government, a number of them, and so many, which are not so simple, but quite interesting and serious. The government has resolved that to redistribute secondary teachers, saying that they are more than enough for the available students. How true is that? And where does that take us? One, they are going to redistribute from rural setting, from the urban settings, because they believe that they are concentrated in places which are is the what is the implementation going to be, and what is the effect of this? Are students going to be affected in any way? How safe are your teachers? Where is this thing, this country?
Yeah, first of all, it's good that government realized the mistake they have been creating. Because these teachers did not deploy themselves in the urban centers. They were deployed by the responsible officers. Now, when we look at primary, the deployment is supposed to be dependent on the staff ceiling of a particular school. Nationally, the teacher pupil ratio should be 1 to 53, meaning every 53 learners are supposed to be given a teacher. And therefore, in the event that we find more teachers than the expected number of teachers, then there is a responsible officer who caused it. Because how then did they find themselves in these schools? And yet, for you to access a school, you must be deployed. Now, for secondary, when you are in teaching in O level, you are supposed to have a workload. And therefore, the deployment should be based on the workload. If you are you are a teacher of arts, you are supposed to teach 24 periods a week. Now, these 24 periods that's why you hear that this one has load, this one does not have load. So if you have less than 24 in circumstances which are not special, because there are special circumstances where the deployment may not necessarily go as per the workload, because there is where you will find there are unique circumstances, and therefore you have to give the teachers, because they are learners who are supposed to be attended to. And then A level is around 18 periods per week. So that is the yardstick for deployment. However, there is always transiting of learners. You find in one term, there are very many. In another term, they have reduced, which means the teachers who qualified to be in school, at some time you will find the learners have reduced, and therefore some teachers need to be redeployed. So redeployment or redistributing of teachers is not a problem. The only problem is, how did they get there when they were not needed there? And now that is what they are trying to rectify. But as they rectify it, they are supposed to go deeper and find out how did it happen, so that we don't redistribute and within no minute we find the same thing happening. Because every learner needs a teacher, and therefore the teachers need to be where the learners are and give a service as required.
Interesting. The same minister said that we have more teachers in secondary schools, but few in primary school. Why is this imbalance? Are people resorting to going to secondary and abandoning primary? Where is the problem coming from? Or it is from, as you said, it is from someone who deploys and someone who recruits?
Not really, because one, the teachers by training are not trained in the same way. Teachers of primary cannot be deployed in secondary. And teachers of secondary, although we have some unique cases of teachers of secondary who came in primary to cover the gap at the time of introduction of UPE, there are secondary school teachers who were deployed in primary because there was shortage. And they have since remained there, and they are still there. Now, obviously, we should see very many teachers in primary than secondary, because when you look at the enrollment, the learners in primary are more than the learners in secondary. And therefore, this is obvious. But possibly, if she's talking about that there is a very small gap in primary and a very big gap, that there is a very small gap of teachers in secondary and a very big gap in primary, that one can be understood in that context. But the two cannot have the number of teachers in equal measure. Obviously, the teachers in the primary schools are currently around 136,000. And yet those in the secondary schools are less than 40,000 in number. Because even when you go to a given district, you will find you have very many primary schools and maybe about 5 secondary schools or 3 secondary schools. And in some districts, you may find one. So that is obvious. The teachers in primary have to be more than the teachers in secondary.
How can we solve the problem of is it on the distribution performance? Is it about, because we have seen poor performances in rural settings and better performances in urban centers, yet we are having the same set of teachers.
Yes, having a teacher is one, and having a conducive learning environment is another.
Because one would think
So
that perhaps
if you have the teachers, but the teachers are not facilitated and not supported to do their work, obviously you will have equality in terms of the number of teachers, but you are not fair, because if you go to urban centers, you will find electricity. And therefore, if they are going to the laboratory, you will find they have electricity to use. How about the one from the rural of the rural, where there is no electricity, there is no solar? How will they compete with these? If you go to these urban schools, you will find the parents making contributions towards the education of their children. When you go to the rural setup, there is nothing. And therefore, there are so many other issues other than having the teachers in a school that support the performance of the school and the learners as well. So where teachers are ill-equipped, ill-facilitated, not supported, obviously you cannot expect their performance to be similar to those who are supported, who are facilitated to do the work.
All right. Interesting. Thank you, Philbert. We've been joined by Godfrey. So you're most welcome to UBC Ground Zero. You may.
Good morning, listeners. And Philbert, nice to see you. My name is Godfrey Busobozi, and I work for the Coalition of Uganda Private School Teachers Association. I am a teacher, a key stakeholder in education, and I'm grateful to UBC for the opportunity given. And
it is something that we should not even give much of our attention.
First, define for me, when you talk of redistribution, what do you mean?
Transferring teachers from one school to another. They will have a challenge that they are concentrated in urban centers and a few are in rural settings.
Well, you see, you are lucky that today you are hosting professional. Transfer is a normal thing in a given service. So when you say redistribution, I don't get it. Transfers are normal. In the first instance, how can you tell me that teachers are concentrated in the urban and they are not in the rural? How can that one be?
That was according to the statement of the minister.
Then it is hollow. Because deployment is done based on so many other factors. Now, we have a policy on the teacher-pupil ratio, which determines the staff ceiling as determined by the Ministry of Public Service. So they will know school X has number of these students. We are going to deploy this number of teachers. So that is a normal process. There is no way you can tell me that teachers were concentrated in the urban areas and there were few in the rural areas. How did that one come to be?
Maybe it's about who deployed them.
Well, I'm not a deployment officer.
We're looking at how this might affect the system of education.
Really, that cannot affect the system of education per se. Because if things are done the way how they should be done, there should be no cause for alarm. If teachers are concentrated in the urban centers, then that means even the numbers within the urban centers of the people who go to school are also many. If there are fewer in the rural centers, then it should also be commensurate with the number of students who go to that school within the rural setup. So that is normal deployment. Yes.
We have few in primary. What is the standard ratio of students to teach to pupils, teachers to pupils?
The teacher-pupil ratio, I think, is the last time I checked.
For primary?
Professional, it should be 1 to 40. For the government of Uganda, they give 1 to 55. But now it is 1 to 60. I think Philbert has the current figure.
The official one is 1 to 53.
For both secondary, because you had mentioned that secondary, does it also cut across to primary?
Yes, because teaching is teaching. The number of learners a teacher should be in position to hold remains the same.
Okay.
What changes is the age factor.
I was going to mention that because if you are gathered 53 children in P1, it is much far different from 53 students in senior 6.
You might be amazed that it is easier to control the ones in P1 than the ones in senior 6.
Interesting. The other resolution is that
maybe what we need to clarify is that the staff ceiling of primary is based on the number of learners in the classroom. And like I said, government official teacher-pupil ratio is 1 to 53. But when it comes to secondary or level, because they specialize in the teaching subjects, then the number of teachers is based on the workload the teachers have within a given school. And the same applies to A level, because they have to see how many subjects are you teaching in a given school, and therefore how many teachers are going to teach these subjects basing on the workload which they have. And the same applies to A level, where O level is 24 and 22, while A level is 18 and 16. That is the arts and sciences respectively. However, what is official is not official across board. We cannot say one size fits all. Right now, as we talk, the people of West Nile who are hearing us, listening to us, we have teachers who are manning a class of 400 learners in primary 1.
For 2 subjects or more.
And therefore, it becomes a little bit ridiculous for you to expect results from this teacher who is handling 400 learners. It's even to turn in a given room, and then you are expecting that this teacher will also produce results like teacher who is manning only 30 learners in a given class. Yes.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, Philbert, you know, government is now prioritizing science subjects, but also Honorable Kaduchu said that there is a problem of inadequate teachers, especially for science subjects. You find that there is only one mathematics teacher or one science teacher. How best can we solve that problem?
Then how do we have a shortage of teachers of science when government is implementing compulsory teaching of science? For years now, government has been in that system. So what is the problem? You see, when we become reactionary, we don't get things right. And when you talk about things without going deeper, then you will misinform the country. But it's very difficult to get a teacher of English than a teacher of mathematics. Anybody who wants to get interested in that should go on the ground in the field and see. So we cannot say we are having sciences compulsory and then we again say we don't have teachers of science. There are teachers who are not deployed, and yet there are vacancies in schools. So I think what we need is to address the challenges as they are. Have we advertised and we have not gotten teachers to apply, so that we make a conclusion that the teachers of science are not there?
But I need to remind Philbert, within the primary sector, there is no specialization of subjects. We don't have specialists in primary, except people choose and they say, I'm more stronger in this subject than I am in this subject. Otherwise, a primary school teacher is supposed to be an all-round teacher.
Mathematics
is supposed to teach
English,
all subjects.
SST?
Yes, all subjects. Because at the grade 3 level, you graduate as a primary school teacher and not a subject specialist. You only become a specialist when you upgrade and get a diploma level, then you get 2 teachable subjects. But even still, when you go back to teach in the primary school, you are meant to teach all the subjects, including infant up to primary 7. So when you hear us do advocacy, challenging the president on the teachers of science versus scientists' pay, we talk from a professional point of view. Because there is science taught in the nursery school. And yet, this nursery school teacher is not being paid as a scientist. And it is at the secondary level where teachers of science are being paid as scientists. We have had this debate over time. And when Dr. Kaduchu says we have a shortage of science teachers, then we need also to contextualize this and understand what exactly did she mean. Because when you talk about shortage of science teachers, what are you referring to? Are we looking at the secondary school level? Are we looking at the primary school level? Are we looking at the post-secondary school level? So where is the shortage and what exactly does it entail? So which subjects are lacking that teachers are not there? And as my colleague Philbert was discussing, you realize that the English as a language is one of these subjects which has no teachers. No wonder of late our English language has greatly changed. So we are speaking a language similar to English as opposed to speaking English at the time. And that's why you see there are all these issues of languages, including now we have Chinese, Germany, Kiswahili, Luganda, etc. So as we go along, you realize that the problems of the teaching fraternity is quite a cocktail which we need to sieve and discuss these things in context if we are going to address issues of improvement, issues of quality, issues of excellence. We need to have a context in which we discuss this and we bring it out. But this firefighting will not give us the results. I can guarantee you on that.
Oh, sure. But as also professionals, do you believe or have you realized that this country needs more of sciences than arts? What is your take on that?
It depends on what you call a science. Because you cannot have a science without an art. That is obvious. I'll give you an example. I have challenged people here. If you are going to teach science, in which language are you going to use when you are teaching this science?
It is English.
Now, when you write mathematics and you are writing the symbols, the figure 1 and figure 2, figure 1, this right is an art. Now, when you do the calculation of the equation, it is a science. So there is no way you can separate these things. Even if you study science, you have to write a report. Now, when you write this science, when you write a report, is it an art or it is a science? You have to do a presentation because you have done a study, you have done research, which is scientific, and you have got scientific results. Now you have to do a presentation in a boardroom. So are you using art or you're using science? So there is no way. These things, they work hand in hand. It is complementary. You can't separate them completely. And that's why we are saying, if it were possible, the powers that be, if they would listen, we would leave the teachers to remain the way they are, because we are all teachers. And these subjects complement each other. And then the scientists, because now those are specialists, they would be handled as scientists. But the teachers, they are teachers of science subjects, and we have teachers of art subjects. And there are those subjects which do not belong to science, and nor do they belong to art, but they are subjects being taught. So how do we categorize that? It is not an art, it is not a science. It is a science art. I'll give you an example. Fine art. Is fine art a science or it is an art subject?
It is an art.
Now you see. So if I draw a picture of a frog being sliced, and I'm going to use that to conduct a science lesson. So, and the one who drew it was an artist, but I'm using this picture to teach a science subject. So will now art subject still be an art subject?
No, it will be science.
So
that is interesting. Philbert, what is your take on science, the government prioritizing science subjects?
You see, you can have a very good idea of something that you need to prepare, but the moment you package it wrongly, you will get wrong results. I want to tell you that the strategy we are using for promotion of science in the country will not give us results because we are firefighting. I want to give you an example. When His Excellency the President was giving presidential address during COVID-19, he was assuring Ugandans that the scientists are about to come up with a vaccine. Just recently, a few days ago, when the professors went to the Committee of Parliament, they were saying there is nothing like that a vaccine takes more than 15 years, which means our president, a teacher is trained to facilitate the teaching learning process. If you are going to teach English, you will get a book that was written by Ogundipe, get the content, go and deliver the content to the learners. What does a teacher who is going to teach biology do? You will get a book, Introduction to Biology, get content from there, take it to the learners. What makes the difference? And therefore, without going here and there, globally, science has a definition and a scientist has a definition. Therefore, we only need to know what we want as a country. We want science. We want technology. But how do you get it? Do you get it by minimizing other subjects? Supposing those who teach humanities decided to say, okay, we are not needed at this point in time, how would you now teach science? And therefore, if you say science is now recognized at secondary, where do those who go to senior one come from? who handles them. And supposing they said, okay, let science begin in senior one, what would happen? And therefore, we need to get back, like the Christians say, we need to go back where we sinned from, begin from there, and get the strategy clearer. Right now, public service is in a total mess.
Why?
Because of the distortions that have been created of science, arts, humanity, country through public service. Forget it. People not saying what is paining them does not tantamount to happiness. And actually, the government should be appreciating for some of us who come out to say, look, there is a problem here. There are so many people who are keeping quiet, things are not moving. And we shall waste a lot of resources without results. And therefore, the best way the government can do is to listen to the stakeholders, is to listen with an intent of listening. But if the government has to say, we are a government, you must listen, then they should forget they are going to.
And who later on become unemployed because they lack the basic skills. Are you not bothered of us having engineers work on our roads coming from other countries? Are you not bothered about Ugandans going abroad for treatment because we don't have better doctors here? Are you not bothered about the engineers, electric engineers and many others, civil engineers? If you have to look at maybe those dams that we have, you would find that the senior engineer coming from somewhere. And if government was prioritizing that, I thought we are going to solve that challenge.
Are you aware that Ugandans are expatriates outside Uganda?
In which field?
Are you aware that people from here to South Africa and only to they find themselves waiting for a consultant who is coming from Uganda? And therefore, we are not saying that we don't have engineers because we were not promoting science. That is not the case. I told you, unless we get to know the challenge which we have, we cannot solve it. The challenge which we have is not the absence of engineers. We have engineers who are not working here. Why are they not working here? We have a number of doctors who are in their private clinics. So when we say we are promoting science and we get the counterparts in arts and humanities and demoralize them and they don't support those who are in the science field, then we shall not get the results we expect from this other side because they are complementary. If you are in a factory, if you are in an industry, you need human resource officers, you need administrators, and these are not going to be scientists. So how do you balance the two? So the question is, how do we balance the two and move in the right direction that will give us results at the end of the day?
All right. Godfrey. Yes. Also, the minister, in his statement, Dr. Joyce Kaduchu, said that they are putting more resources in government schools, both primary and secondary, so that people or students can be able to study with no hindrance. Is this the only hindrance that was affecting the performance of schools? What is your expectation in this? If government puts more resources, what are we expecting?
You are talking to somebody who has been at this game for ages. for decades now. I have done no any other job apart from being an educationist throughout my lifetime. Now, resources, what do you mean when you talk about resources? Is it money? Is it the scholastic materials? Is it the human resource? What is this definition did our good Honorable Minister refer to?
Of course, you started with the teachers. That is human resource.
Let us
Now they are
now,
put
let us
finances.
face it. Today, government is offering 17,000 shillings per child per year in primary,
17.
which is about 6,000 shillings per term. And that money is broken down into 4 in the budget. They give percentages. Co-curricular activities, which includes music, dance, and drama, games and sports, meetings, scholastic materials, which means chalk, paper, blah, 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 all that. Now, it pays a teacher around 460,000 shillings, which is gross for the primary school teacher. That's where I'm going to concentrate most, because that's where the gist of the matter lies. Now, and you are saying you are going to put in more resources. What exactly do you mean? We are still lacking classrooms as a country. We have shortage of classrooms. They are not enough. We don't have enough teachers because we now have the human resource migration from the classroom to something else. You need to interest yourself and get a scientific study to find out from COVID. I'm just giving you the recent statistics. From the time we were hit by COVID until today, how many teachers have left the teaching profession and how many have joined? You will be amazed. Because people are getting frustrated and they are no longer enjoying the teaching profession because of this haphazard management across board. Now, if I'm going to speak very candidly, because this is a national radio, teachers in the primary school are complaining because they are confusion. There is confusion. They are confused. They are being bombarded with every time everything new. I have used that English on purpose. Every time everything new. When you wake up today, they tell you we are going to upgrade and the teacher has to have a degree. Me, I set up my program. When I finish senior 4, I will go and become a teacher for primary. I get married and I retire. I set my agenda and I have finished. Now you are saying you have to have a degree. As you are there, you see now teaching has changed. You have to have this innovation. You have to have this innovation. You have to have the other innovation. So consequently, you create confusion because there are so many reforms which are taking place and they are all occurring at the same time. So when the minister refers to resources, we need to understand what exactly do you mean when you talk about resources? Even the capitation grant, which I have told you of the 17,000 shillings, does not reach school in time. The payment of salaries is not being paid on time. I have received phone calls as I was coming here today, just this morning for this program. Some district teachers have not been paid for the past 2 months. It is last week when they paid February. Others, that's when they paid January. Now we are wondering, what is the problem? When you talk about putting their resources, why don't we first solve the problem at hand? Because there is the issue of inspection. The Education Standards Agency is underfunded and it is understaffed. The manpower which is supposed to implement the inspection of these schools is understaffed and it is underfunded. So there is nobody who is ready to do what they call support supervision for purposes of systematic implementation of these government programs, which are very good. But when it comes to implementation, it becomes a mess. So unless I'm convinced that the resources have been clearly defined, after a thorough study has been done, knowing that in the primary school we have a shortfall of such and such a number of teachers, we have advertised. How many have responded to the advert? And how many have we recruited? Then we shall be able to go. As Philbert has told you, public service has vacancies, but these vacancies are not filled in. And do you know why? We don't have the money. Where has the money come from all of a sudden? I have told you the teacher people ratio. You go in some of these schools, one teacher is teaching a classroom because there is the class teacher system. One teacher, 140 children in a class. And you are saying you are going to have resources.
Maybe to reduce on that number of student teacher ratio, the government is opting to construct more 1,000 schools in parishes and 330. Will that sort of that big number and big load from teachers?
Yes, it would. It would sort of. However, we need to find out first. You see, when Karamoja was being introduced in the mainstream formal education, we had a program called ABEC, Alternative Basic Education for Karamoja. What we used to do at the time, we would follow the Karamojong to where they are. We would create a school in the grazing land so that this child is able to study as he's watching at his cows.
That's
And
interesting.
it yielded results. I have had projects where latrines have been constructed and the Karamojong don't go into them. They have turned them into stores in these markets. Now, you see, when you are going to do an intervention, you are talking of increasing classrooms at parishes. Have you carried out a study that in parish X, we need this number of classrooms? The projection of students who will attend the school will be running at this rate, or you are just going to put there because there is political pressure that you want a classroom in such and such an area, or you want to increase the number of classrooms here and there. So we need really to be very, very, very serious when we are talking public management, such that we all benefit out of this, because education is a public good. Now, our public education is slowly and steadily dwindling at the expense of the private schools. I'm constrained to say this, but I will say it. I don't know what the word conflict of interest means in this country called Uganda. The managers of education at the public level are the managers of education in the private sector where I come from. You are a DEO, district education officer. You are an inspector of schools. You also have a private school somewhere. You are a minister and a minister of education.
And you have 4 schools.
You also have schools somewhere.
And you are a policy maker.
And you are a policy maker. Now, how do you balance these intricacies?
And policy improvement.
How do you implement these policies? For whose gain do I serve? You see, we need to contextualize these things and we understand it, because what are we up to? If we are going to give education as a public service, let us be clear and systematic, and we make sure that our public education is for the public, and let that one private education be handled at that angle, such that there is no conflicting royalty, because you will find where to belong and where not to belong. Maybe it is the reason why we are the way we are.
I think the minister was right. He said, as you said, they were lacking teachers. She made mention that there are 1,819 teachers, which is more than less according to the ratio that you just mentioned. I believe they will be working on that to recruit more teachers. Philbert,
Yes.
the performance of government. Godfrey has given us his opinion on he seems to be frustrated about government distribution, government facilitation, and allocation of resources. Could this be the reason as to why we're having poor performances in government schools compared to private schools? But also taking into consideration that there are some government schools which are performing much better. What is the imbalance?
Now, first of all, what informed cabinet on these decisions? One, there is a fear about school dropout, and which is a fact, because the completion rate at primary is 32%. Now the question is, where is the 68%? Who accounts for it? What forces the 68% out of the school system? Possibly, in their wisdom, they discovered that paying off money in schools is forcing the learners to get out of school. But will that solve the problem and give us 95% of completion? We are yet to see that. And therefore, we need to look at what are the challenges that exist in our education system and how can we address these challenges. We have the question of resources. Resources can be financial, resources can be human. How are the teachers? Are the teachers happy? Are they happy? Are they facilitated? Are they supported to do the work? And if they are not, then how do we expect to get performance from where we have starved the sector? You can put in place the classrooms. You can put in place measures to pay for the learners. But where are these schools located? Do we have houses for teachers where they can sleep? What intervention are you making for the hard to reach, hard to stay, hard to teach? All those are issues. Therefore, let us look at what is the problem at hand. What do we need to do to address it? If we address it partially, we shall have the status quo remaining. When we are saying there is a divide in terms of performance, let us imagine you have a learner in primary under UPE who is getting less than 80 shillings a day. Now, 80 shillings a day, you compare it with someone who is paying, let's say, at minimum 200,000 per term. You may think this is little, but when you compare it with what government injects in the public school, then the other one becomes better. And therefore, we need to address this. Where you find there are 7 classrooms and you have 5 teachers, do you expect results to come from there? Because at any one time, there are 2 classes which are not attended to. The private school might be in makeshift, but the owner will make sure that each class has a teacher. In some well-established schools, you will find a subject is being taught by 3 teachers. One subject, 3 teachers. But in a public school, one teacher, all subjects. Now, how do you expect to compare these at the end of the day? I have told you, you will find a teacher of primary 1 in front of 300 learners. And you expect this teacher to produce results like the one who has 30 in a class. Now, there are so many issues that need to be addressed so that when we address them holistically, then we know we have addressed the challenge and we know we have put this to rest. Otherwise, we shall have classrooms, we shall have teachers put there, but when we don't address other underlying factors, the story will remain the same, and that will be unfortunate.
All right. Interesting. This is UBC Ground Zero. We're broadcasting live on 4 radio stations. We are live on UBC Red on 98 FM in covering Kampala and all other parts of this country. We are live and clear on Butebo FM covering eastern parts of this country. We are live and clear on Western Isle FM covering Western Isle sub-region, actually sub-region, Alango sub-region, and parts of Karamoja. We are also live and clear on Magic 100 FM covering the central parts of this country. And this is UBC Ground Zero. We are discussing implementing newly introduced resolutions in government-aided schools. And in the studios of UBC, I have Philbert Baguma, is the Secretary General, coming from Uganda National Teachers Union. And also I have Godfrey Usogozi, is the National Chairman, Coalition of Uganda Private Schools Teachers Association and Unions. Ampaire Amon Butega is my name, and we are having a good talk on the education system in this country, and it is our responsibility as the citizens to make sure that the direction that we are taking as a country is taking us to a better future. I'm going to open my lines 776-511-426, and you'll tell us what needs to be done in order to promote the education system in Uganda. But also, you can send your messages on 0701 24 26 47. I am seeing your message, Benjamin. I am seeing your message, Isaac from Bali. You can keep your messages coming through. I'll be reading them later on. Before I go for a very short break, gentlemen, I would love to engage you in another serious resolution passed by the cabinet, which Dr. Kaduchu mentioned of. They have warned teachers not to send students back home for not having uniforms. And the minister said that it is the responsibility of parents to make or buy uniforms for their children. And parents to provide uniforms for their children, it is their concern. And it should not be compulsory for a child to be forced out of school because of uniform. What is the consequence this may take? Am I not going to see some Christmas tree in our classrooms because everyone would be putting on what they really like to put on since the government has made this resolution? Let me start with you, Godfrey.
Now, this is a very, very big challenge for us as a country, and we need to be very serious. We cannot run the affairs of the state haphazardly. We need, first of all, to define what do we want as a country. If students are meant to be in school and they are supposed to put on uniform, then let it be so. If we are saying schools are free to dress the way they want, then let it be so. Because we cannot be neither nor. We need to be serious on these matters. We either choose to have school uniform or people to dress the way they want. That is one. Then the other area, you need to go back in history and find out, why do school-going children put on uniform? There are majorly 3 reasons as to why. One is identity. Because this child is easily identified A uniform is an identifier. You are able to know that this child is a school-going child to school A, school B, school C, school D. That is identification. Number two is the issue of smartness, appearance. Because somebody who is going to school should be decently dressed. You are all uniformed in dressing. You have tucked in. If it is a belt, the belt has been tied. Smartness has to be seen. Then the third point is security. You see, because of the uniform, these children get secure. Even a wrongdoer finds it a burden to cause harm to this uniformed child. If you are going to do defilement and you are taking this young girl in a lodge and the girl is in uniform, the lodge manager will say, no,
you have brought a child.
You have brought a school child here. We cannot allow. Let me call the police. That is why.
Don't cause me problems.
Don't cause me problems. That's why these uniforms were introduced majorly for those three reasons. And that's why schools have these uniforms. However, the politician is saying it is a responsibility of the parent to buy the uniform. So the children should not be sent home because they have not put on uniform. Fair enough. So let it be clear that school uniforms are not. Let people dress the way they want. And then we shall know it is okay. But as long as there are those three reasons as to why we have the uniform, then it should be there. And then I'm also wondering, where is this notion of baptizing people poor coming from? Who has said that our people are poor? And by the way, who is rich? Who has ever accepted that he's rich or she's rich? Everybody says I'm poor. How would you define this? Why are our people being forced to be poor? Poor parents, poor parents, poor parents. Who has said so? Let us look at the poverty index. What is the percentage of Ugandans who are below the poverty line? And why do you produce children who you cannot look after? And what is the role of government when it comes to provision of education? And what is the role of the parent when it comes to a child going to school?
Godfrey, are you not bothered about how schools are charging uniforms these days? 320, 270. One needs to have 3 or 6 pairs of school uniform, sports uniform, school uniform, and so many others.
Of course,
and
it is bothering.
If you don't pay for such,
I'm going to answer you straight out. It is bothering and it is bothersome. However, we need to be clear and categorical. Look at what the government did. They have put the school fees at 460 minimum, and they have put maximum at 1.6 billion.
For secondary.
Now, for secondary, you are paying a primary school teacher 460,000 shillings, and you are putting the cap for secondary at 1.6. When will this teacher who has 2 children in secondary school pay that school fees? And you are the very same government who is saying that the school fees is very costly. Are you sincere? So we need to analyze these things and we understand them so that we know exactly what are we up to. Otherwise, I'm getting a bit skeptical.
All right. Philbert, are you not bothered that a child would miss his or her exam because of missing a school uniform? And don't you think it is the right thing for government to say, let us protect our children as long as they are studying? What comes on their bodies is not concerning what comes into their head.
First of all, I want us to remove politics from education. Because the moment we start planning to appease people so that they look at us as good when we are actually not helping them, it will be disastrous. It has been common that when you go to some schools outside the urban centers, or even in urban centers, but which are UPE schools, you will always find there children who do not put on school uniform. Some will be putting on uniform, others will not be putting on uniform because that is their level. You talk about shoes, some are putting on these plastic shoes and all sorts of shoes. Now, when the government comes to say, don't send away children for uniform, whom are they referring to? Because in most UPE schools, uniform is not for everyone. There are those who don't have it. And that has been a challenge because it exposes these learners to what Mr. Busoboz was talking about. It exposes them. It is a risk. But because they are coming from families which are not able, they have been going to school and nobody had sent them away. But now government is saying, don't touch these learners because of uniform. It means even those who were trying to buy uniform will not buy it because you have given them a leeway. So you will make the situation worse. Two, you see, when we talk of uniform, we should not use bad practices to condemn what is good. If a school is overcharging uniform, let us look at that and address that. But again, you cannot have uniform where everyone goes to the market and buys the color. Whether you talk of any color, there are shades of this color. So if you let them buy from wherever they come across the color you have told them, they will come with different shades. It will not be uniform. And we all know when you go for any color, you will always find different shades of the color. So we should address the overcharging of school uniform by schools, but not saying no more supplying of school uniform in schools. Two, like I have told you, government pays less than 80 shillings per day to a child under UPE, which is not adding to 20,000 in a year. Now it has come out to say, if you are a private school, primary, day, don't pay more than 650,000. Now, I want you to compare 650 and 20,000. For you, you are paying 20,000 for a year. The other one, you are saying pay not more than 650, which will be 1.9 in a year. So you are looking at 2 million versus 20,000. But you want all these learners to get the same quality of education, and they are all using the same curriculum. And therefore, I want us to look at these things squarely without putting emotions, and look at what should be done and why. What are we addressing? And then we help the Ugandan child out of this mess. Otherwise, we would actually, sometimes government comes up with very good ideas, But the way they are brought for implementation, they die on arrival. Because if you bring it and it is not practical, obviously people will not implement it. And therefore it will remain on the paper, but it cannot be implemented. That's why stakeholder involvement is very key. If you are bringing something good for the people, why don't you involve people in determining what is going to help them so that they own it and you walk the journey together?
All right. Interesting. Ground Zero and 4 radio stations, UBC Radio, UBC Table covering eastern parts of this country. We're also live and clear on Western Isle FM, and we're also live on Magic 100 FM. We're also streaming live on radio, UBC Radio on YouTube. You can just be there and be part of the conversation. My line is 776-511-426, and you'll be able to reach us. I'm going for a very short break. I see you have started calling, but allow me go for a very, very short break. And when I return, I'll turn with your calls and reading some of your messages. This is UBC Ground Zero, and I'm Paide Amon Ortega is my name.
Ground Zero live on UBC Radio. Stay tuned. Don't miss UBC Radio Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We host credible and relevant guests to discuss pertinent issues of national importance aimed at addressing people's concerns. UBC Radio Ground Zero right here on UBC Radio. Tune in to Ground Zero on UBC Radio. We discuss politics.
The money we collect as taxes in the country, we lose it in corruption.
Economics.
The 4 economic sectors where there are jobs and wealth are commercial agriculture, industries, services, and ICT.
Education.
The classes which will not need an abridged curriculum are the entry-level classes of P1, Senior 1, and Senior 5.
Culture and religion. And other areas of human interest. Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio. Don't miss.
We are always live every Saturday from 10 to 12 p.m. on 4 radio stations. That is UBC Radio, UBC Table, UBC Western Island, Magic 100 FM for UBC Ground Zero. And we're glad that you're part of us from the time we started this program. In the studios is UBC. I am privileged to have Philbert Baguma, is the Secretary General, coming from Uganda National Teachers Union. And also we have Godfrey Sowozi, is the National Chairman, Coalition of Uganda Private School Teachers Association and Union. And we're talking about implementing the newly introduced resolutions in government-aided schools. And Ampaire Amon Ortega is my name. 776-511-426. UBC.
Good morning, Papa. How are you?
Very good morning to you. I'm glad that you're part of us.
Good morning to our distinguished guests at their capacity, and good morning to Uganda all. Education. Education has been a pillar towards the achievement of the success of everyone who is willing to study, because not everyone goes to school. But today, with the impunity, the leadership, politically, we don't see much from education. The teachers' welfares are always in the bracket. And now some of the teachers who teach the mathematics may say that body must pass, body must history. But the government, political leaders failed to remove that body bracket. Usage of media. By, let me take example, the president himself is good at bringing people information, like picking science teachers to be his priority. Without knowing him himself, when he was at school, he was not all that about science, but only that climatic changes and we keep changing. This is global. So how are we going to adapt? For me, this time around, teachers, they need to be considered the fundamental unity, fundamental institution, whereby everybody who is today is vocalist, who can pass information, came via them. I too, I came via them. You too will listen to music right now. At least you have had, if you have never attended it. Okay? So UPE had its own fact why it has not done to the best. Why? Number one, corruption. Number two, implementation of the funding. It will reach to next week where I come from. When it is from Kampala, it is a half. It will reach there even not even a quarter. The supervision. Someone was talking about supervision. I don't know. It will help us. How and which method do you normally use it with your team to supervise the government funding, and yet when we are not seeing the feedback? And the corona came with its issues. So many teachers resorted to write border, and by themselves they can confess, and they will say that at least in a day I'm sure of my 30,000. You are going to struggle with the children of someone's children at school, even you're going to get annoyed.
Okay.
And mind you, it is your own problem. You're going to train someone's child to death, and we have been seeing this scenario.
All right.
Teachers are trained and children are dying.
Your way forward.
In summary, government, before they bring information over the media, let them engage the stakeholders within that institution of education. Let them gather the minister and the rest CEO and infrastructure of Amon. I forgot it was like raining season.
Ground Zero from Bosega, and we're glad that you're part of UBC Ground Zero today. UBC? UBC?
No.
You're live and clear.
Yes, good morning.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
This is Opio from Kireka.
Opio from?
Opio from Kireka.
All right.
Something I want to ask.
Please.
Those people from the studio.
Mm.
will say, when you take your child to school, why teachers asking for the cement or like a spring broom? Actually, cement, and you pick like 280. What is the use of the government, UPE, to pay the children? And for those money, where are they taking? Are they taking to give the teachers, or they're going to give the government back? Secondly, you're talking about children, say, like in primary. Why are they asking again money from primary level? And about changing teachers, it's good to change teachers. Like for me, I was having a teacher at school, but this teacher of mathematics, he was a very stammerer. When you tell him that he pardon, he can just say, pardon for what? When you didn't understand the question, he cannot even pardon about you. So it's good to change a teacher so that the teacher will get the characters of schools, of children at this school or from other schools.
But even if this teacher was redistributed or transferred, still he will keep on stammering. I know. 776 511 is the number that you can call and raise your issues, and we happen to address them. You're live and clear on UBC. UBC.
The only challenge I see.
Your name and where you're calling us from? Your name, please.
I'm calling from Kumi. I'm Emmanuel.
Emmanuel Kumi.
Yeah, Emmanuel Omo.
All right.
So the only challenge I see. Most of the research is carried only in urban areas. But when you reach to the rural areas, the information which is captured and being presented is alternated. They don't bring the reality. In fact, in rural areas, the welfare of teachers is poor. Science school have something like 10 teachers, but there's only one house constructed by the government, having only 2 rooms. Where can all those teachers really reside?
All right.
That's the problem. The great problem is just the welfare.
All right. Thank you, Manuel. 776-511-426 is the number that you can call and raise your issue. UBC. UBC.
Yes, please. Hello.
Your name and where are you calling us from?
I'm called Wanyito Wilfred. I'm calling from Sironko district, Eastern Uganda. Mr. Waguma, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for the program.
You are welcome.
I'm a teacher by profession. I'm going to speak on a practical note. First of all, I want to look at the issue of science and art education in Uganda. I want to supplement or add on what you have actually given the nation, that the science and other subjects coexist. They all act as pillars to the other, one another. Uganda, in its own making and being a state in Africa, does not have the guts of producing complete scientists. We only have implementers who can look at the books of the scientists of long ago and enlighten on the upcoming generation of Uganda. So to begin paying, as they have done, the discrepancy of paying more money to the science as the government has put, is in itself a factor demoralizing the fraternity. And when intimidation is there and people are not striking and demonstrating, the demonstration will go back to the class. And that's the reason you see that performance is not as they predict. Secondly, the poor quality of education in Uganda and in Sironko, where I work, shall continue to persist and exist for as long as the policies that are designed by the heads of the Curriculum Development Center, the president of this country, the permanent secretaries, and the Minister of Education are without inculcation of the grassroots implementers. It is very absurd for you to design a cloth for a best friend of yours whom we have not actually known the size, the body size, and you just make a dress in that way and you think it will work and fit. That one itself may be an outfit. And the reason you find that policies that come out of the grassroots, the ministry, are not properly embraced. Because once the participation has not been done by the teachers and other lower cadres here at the grassroots, then there will be disgruntlement and there will be no promotion or there will be no achievement of the results and the planned activities.
All right.
The mass promotion and the liberty of children, because there's a lot of liberty, there's much strict emphasis on discipline and time management and what on the teacher, especially on the current trend of monitoring the teacher by phone. But the child is at liberty. The teacher is curtailed from picking even a stick to scare or to just use it as a tool to curb indiscipline in the school. Now, if the child is not tamed and the teacher is being tamed and the child is the one supposed to benefit and actually reap success, what will this be? The dense population, I'm in a school called Salikwa Primary School. I repeat, Salikwa Primary School. I'm Wanyito Wilfred. I have a class of P1 with over 400. I have a class of P5 with over 370 managed by one teacher. Tell me that a teacher will be able to assess, mark, and guide the students. Even just recalling a register alone can take you a period or 2 periods, which are supposed to have been for teaching. So unless the government comes up to discover that the 53 per child ratio to the teacher is made realistic, then the teaching and the success will not be reached. That infrastructure development is also too low. The schools have no accommodation. Even when the policy says there are supposed to be more teachers, you will find the district not advertising because it's also underfunded. They have always had the gaps, like in my school, Sarikwa Primary School. I'm supposed to have 38 teachers, but I now have 22, and the gap has never been filled. So check that. Now,
all right. Yeah, way forward, sir.
The perspective now and conclusion is that the pay discrepancies and the politicization of education programs and the political systems and the rules around are not going to be of any value. Let's leave the politics to be aside and education to be its own way. Lastly, my colleague there talked about uniforms. You cannot stand at the national level and say that uniforms are useless. Uniforms are for identification, as he has put it, and enforcement of discipline. A child who is absent and is passing by a school and has the school a uniform to that school will prompt the teachers to say this one is absent. Or a child who has just got an accident in school uniform will be taken with due concern than a child who is just moving around, because we have city children and we have school children.
All right.
We must have the difference between a city child and a school child by simply having them dressed in uniform.
Thank you, sir.
Kindly, Mr. Waguma, thank you very much. I'm listening, but this is the reality, and I want you to deliberate, and probably the concerned officers can also maybe come up to know that there are grassroots implementers whom we shall be contacting before such arrangements made. I remain with Wanyitwa.
Thank you, sir. Okay. And greetings to the people of Sorongo.
Thank you very much.
A number of Ugandans are raising their concerns about the topic of the day and such pertinent issues coming. UBC Ground Zero.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir.
A very good morning.
You're talking to Teacher James from Udaka.
Your name again?
Teacher James from Udaka.
James from Budaka.
I'm happy to hear Mr. Waguma.
Okay.
My question to him, okay, the one who is now fighting for at least for salary and harassment. How far is that issue is, so you should also address that to know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, UBC Radio, UBC Table, UBC Western Nile, and Magic 100 FM. We're talking about implementing newly introduced resolutions in government-aided schools. These are still proposals, and a few have been implemented or soon to be implemented. And allow me, our time is not really on our side, and we still have a lot to discuss. Allow me get one more caller. If time allows, we shall have more calls and radio messages. UBC? Ground Zero?
Hello.
You're live and clear.
Thank you. This is Otim Bernard from Katakwi.
Otim?
Hello, Otim Bernard from Katakwi.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baguma.
Okay. He's listening.
So much, Mr. Baguma.
He's listening.
For me, I would think the government cannot solve all the problems of teachers and learners. Now, what you would request is if the government would privatize that institution, it would perform better.
All right. Thank you.
That is when it can solve and fix those problems well.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Allow me for now pause some of the callers and read some messages. Some from Entebbe. You said the government is ready to favor the parents, especially in the rural settings, by shifting the burden and taking it on to the government. How do you expect a peasant to pay for children for uniforms, which is worth 100 plus when he's not earning? And also Benjamin from Bale says the government introduced privatization And this has really affected the education system, and the government has not really given much more attention to the government-aided schools. I'll keep your messages coming through. I would be reading one by one, but time is not on our side. Allow me give you 1 minute, if really would be enough, to answer some of the callers, starting with you, Baguma.
Yeah, thank you very much to the callers. Thank you very much for the compliments and questions which you have contributed. One, consider the teachers, because there is a lot of corruption, and government needs to fight corruption in order to save resources for teachers' welfare. Thank you very much for that observation. Why ask cement and other items for school children? I want to believe this parent is talking about private schools, because I don't think in UPE and USE schools the administrators are asking for cement and other items. If they do, then it should only come when the parents have sat and have decided on some of these items. Why ask for money in UPE and USE schools? We have told you that in a UPE school, government pays less than 80 shillings a day, which translates to less than 20,000 a year. So, is this money enough to educate a child in primary? If you answer that question, then it will answer you why money is being asked in these UPE and USE schools. If government commits to increasing the money in UPE and USE schools, that will be the pride of every Ugandan, provided the money as promised comes and in time. Then the head teachers will not ask parents and guardians to pay any money. Good to transfer teachers. Teachers are transferable, and therefore nobody should dance that government has come up to say we are going to transfer teachers. Teachers are transferable. It has been there and it will continue to be there, because you are taught to teach, not taught to teach a particular school. Welfare of teachers is poor. Research is normally done in urban areas, and they leave out the rural areas. And this gentleman was indicating that the welfare of teachers should be looked into, and that is the prayer of everyone.
All right.
They just saying a P5 class of 370 pupils being manned by one person. Do you expect results from this teacher? How do you teach?
To sign out.
To Ground Zero on UBC Radio. We discuss politics.
The money we collect as taxes in the country, we lose it in corruption.
Economics.
The four economic sectors